Hello, boys and girls. Well, today is a fascinating video because we are going to talk about scales. Yeah, the skin of a snake. We're going to talk about other animals like maybe a lizard or a turtle or a tortoise or something. I don't know yet. We'll find that out. Depends what's in these boxes around me. But we're going to look at some actual skeletal matter like skulls and bones, like what we have in our fingers and arms and hands. So this is going to be one where we learn about the animals themselves. So we're just going to start real easy. We're going to talk about what's called a keel, K-E-E-L. A keel is like a line that goes right down the bottom of a canoe or a boat, but on a snake, it goes right in the center of the scale. So we're going to start off with the first snake that is a keeled-scaled snake. Let's see if I can find him. Oh, he's got to be somewhere around here. Let me look. I think I'm looking here first, and well, that could be a keeled-scaled snake. I'm feeling the bag, and because I'm feeling the bag, I can tell you right away that this is a keeled-scaled snake. I'm pretty sure I know who this is. I think his name is Sirius Black. If you're a reader of Harry Potter characters, you'll know that Sirius Black is a very important part of the books. So, oh, it is Sirius Black. Look how serious he looks. Yeah, Sirius Black is clearly a keeled-scaled snake. If you look real close, you'll see a little line on every single scale. Look real close. Every little scale has a line on it. See how he's using his body to climb on my hand? Now, if you look at his head, we'll see if he's a little camera shy. He'll look at the camera here. Right here, you'll see the scales on his head are shiny and smooth. They're not keeled on the head of this snake, but on his entire body, all the way to the tip of his tail, they're keeled. He is a keeled-scaled snake. Now, why would he have keels on his skin? These little bumps, they're very soft and smooth, by the way. These bumps help him in the terrain where he lives. He's a Mexican black, tell by the color, pine snake. So this snake comes from Mexico, and where they live in a very rough environment, hence the rough skin. He's a beautiful snake, has a black belly here, and what's really interesting about this animal is when he sheds his skin, not like all snakes, but with him, it is a dark colored skin. So this is the shed of this snake right here. He shed this just a few days ago, but I'm going to try to show you the scales on the shed up close. They're going to be reversed, but if you look real close, you can actually see the little tiny lines on the scales of the shed. It's really kind of cool. So when I see a shed of a skin, there's two things I know right away. One, the snake is shorter than the shed. That's just the way it is. We can get him, this is his tail, this is the body. You can see the shed is much longer. So this right here, well, he's making it difficult, but the shed is longer, I promise you. And that is what happens because their skin is real loose. So when they shed, it stretches. So when it stretches, it becomes longer because it dries that way, and that's the way we find them. So if you find a 5-foot shed, it's probably a 4-foot or maybe a 3.5-foot snake, not as long as the shed itself. Kind of an interesting fact there. But this snake uses this dark color as protection. So it's part of his camouflage. So everybody say, bye. This is a smooth-scaled snake, I do believe. So you have keel, K-E-E-L. You have semi-keeled scaled snakes, and you have smooth scaled snakes. So this one's going to be a smooth scale. Most of the ones we see will be smooth scale. This is a neat animal. This is a gray banded king snake. Now what makes them interesting with their skin, yes, they have really smooth scales. You can almost see a keel there, but not really. So this is a smooth scaled snake. Think about these markings. These red, orangish colors and these bands, called a gray banded king snake, hence the gray bands. But these help him with camouflage, or her in this case with camouflage, because they climb rocks at night. So when an owl is flying over, they will see these colors marked in with those desert rocks and ground cover, and the snake is camouflaged. Now what makes the gray band unique with its camouflage, they're also camouflaged on their belly. See, that looks like shadows. So when this snake is crawling along a ledge, going woo, 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 just crawling along, and a badger or maybe a coyote is looking up for something to eat, and they see shadows of the rocks instead of the snake. So the camouflage works again, goes on to find a little mouse or lizard to eat. So let's say bye. Wave your tongue at everybody. That's a good girl. So we've seen a couple snakes. We've seen a keeled scale. We've seen a smooth scale. Now let's take a look at some skulls, some skeletal skulls, and see what they look like. If you look here, the one on your far side here is a rabbit. And then the next one is a pigeon. The next one is a lizard. The next one is a toad. And the last one is a fish. So very different looking, but they all have one thing in common. They're the head of an animal. So when you look at these, it gives you an idea of how different skulls look, but we're concentrating on the reptiles today. So let's take a look at a snake skeleton. We've now seen the skin and the shed. If you look closely, this is a venomous skeletal snake, probably like a copperhead. But you can take a look at the scales and you can see how this gives the snake strength and locomotion with that skin to where it can crawl and climb. So when you look at the scale of a snake and you look at the skin of a snake, you learn something. But when you see the bones, you know how they use all of those together. And so this gives you an example of how the snake uses its bone. Whether it was non-venomous or not, you see rib bones just like this one here. Those rib bones help with their locomotion. They align them with their scales and their scoots, and they climb, crawl, and swim, as we learned earlier. Now we're going to go to a much larger, this is the skull of a reticulated python. Probably around a 12 to 18 foot. You can tell that it's a non-venomous snake immediately, because if you look on the upper jaw, this outer jaw has a row of teeth. This outer jaw has a row of teeth. And then in the center here, on the top of the head, you see another row on each side. That's 4 rows of teeth on the top of the head of a non-venomous snake. And that's most of them, not all of them. Then it has a row on the bottom, another row on the bottom here, giving it 6 rows of teeth. Gives you an idea of how many teeth it takes to swallow some food. They have very short teeth, but these teeth help them pull the food in. So if you take a good look at the top of the head, you'll see how it's kind of flat. That is where the skin goes over, and it gives the snake protection for that skull. Just like we have a hard head, they have somewhat of a hard head as well. So this is another example of the teeth of a python. You can see those would not feel good. You would not want to be bit, but they eat mammals like rabbits and very, very small pigs and things like that in the wild. They will also eat other reptiles. Very interesting. So before we look at any more skeletal items, let's look at another snake. We'll just see what this is. Maybe I can show it to you and you tell me if it's a killed scale or a smooth scaled snake. All my snakes are either killed, semi-killed, or smooth. Every snake I have. I don't have any of the saw scale vipers or any of those dangerous snakes. So let's take a good look at Mrs. Weasley here. Is she a killed scaled snake? You almost see a line there. Almost, but not quite. This is what's called a semi-killed scaled snake. All the rat snakes and corn snakes. You can look at her head, see her head very close there, see if she smiles at the camera. Did you smile for the camera? Huh. So this here is a smooth scaled snake. Tell how shiny that is. Usually the smoother scaled snakes are shinier, but she has a little bit of a kill there. So semi-killed to smooth scaled is what you would call this snake, this corn snake. These are the great climbers that you may have seen in one of our other videos where the corn snakes and rat snakes climb so well. Watch her go up to my hand here. She'll do a little bit of climbing here. She will also use this dark color to protect herself. A snake cannot in any way absorb water. So the skin they have protects them from the rain, dust, dirt, mud, and in some cases even some mild chemicals. But harsh chemicals can damage their skin just like it can yours and mine. So their skin is much more a skin and not a bunch of scales. Like if I pulled off one of her scales, the scale would not grow back. A piece of scar tissue would grow back. Like if I pulled off a piece of my skin, ouch, that hurt. Scar tissue would grow back. The skin would not be exactly the same. So that is what happens with a snake just as well. So what they really have are skin plates. Skin plates are scales. So we call them scales because that's what they look like and that's how we help identify snakes, but they're really a skin plate. It's part of their skin, just like your skin and mine. This species, very, very soft. Okay, let's say bye, Mrs. Weasley. Mrs. Weasley, wave your tongue at everybody. That's a good girl. Okay. Okay, we have another snake here. We're going to see if you can tell me what this one is. This one hopefully is more obvious, but maybe not. Maybe it's obvious to people like me. Let's see what we, oh yeah, I can tell. I know immediately. Yep, because I'm feeling it. I have the advantage of touching the snake. Oh my goodness, what a big snake. So let's get this real close as I can get it, where it stays focused. Is this a killed scaled snake? Or is this a semi-killed scaled snake? Or a smooth scale? Let's see if I can show you these scales. Kind of interesting. What's your guess? Okay, well, say it out loud. This is a keeled scaled snake, not a smooth scale. The belly's nice and smooth. The back, not so much. So if you look at this snake, has banding on its tail. They will actually rattle this tail when they're real scared. Doesn't make a sound, but they rattle it, and then they will take their head. They have a tall head where they're able to hiss, and it'll go make a real loud noise, and they'll rattle their tail at the time. So what do you think they're mimicking? That's right, a rattlesnake. These blotches on the back, a lot of people will think are diamonds. So they'll think they're looking at a diamondback rattlesnake, and they are not looking at a diamondback rattlesnake. They're looking at a Texas bull snake. That's what this snake here is a bull snake. He is rather jumpy today. His name's Rocky Jr. He has a dad. The dad passed away, and the dad was not jumpy. not anything like his son here. Dad was really, really calm. So you can get an idea of these keeled scales on snakes that are not solid black. So hopefully you can see that. Can you see that? Excellent. So this is an example of a keeled scaled snake. Bull snakes get pretty long. This snake might be close to as long as me by now. Not really sure. We'll see. Yeah, he's around 5 feet now. So he's already around 5 foot. So he's a big bull snake. And 7 foot, nothing unusual with this species. 7 foot bull snakes are not uncommon. So let's say bye to Rocky Jr. He's not in a good mood. Let's look at the camera, at least say bye to the children. Okay, that's better. Good boy. This is his bag for today. These are just temporary. They don't stay in these bags very long, just while we're off doing a show or maybe a birthday party or going out to a festival. Those kind of things that Texas Snakes and More does. So let's take a look here. What else do we have? Well, my goodness. What's this? That looks like the bones of a turtle. Look at this. This part here, that's called the plastrum. That's the bottom of the turtle or tortoise. This right here is the underside. Look at that skeleton. That you have the backbone, the spine, literally the spine going right down the center of the back. Now, if you turn it around this way, there's the shell. The shell's called the carapace, and the mouth's called a beak. Let's take a look at that beak. So it gives you this idea of what these guys can look like on the inside. This is a water turtle, but even a tortoise or a box turtle would have these exact same body parts as we just called them. So it gives you an idea of what these parts look like. And sometimes you'll find the parts where the animal has died, but you leave the bone structure behind. I've found many of skeletons in a forest, like walking around when I'm hiking and things like that. So this is a really neat example of what they look like. Oh my, what's this? A guinea pig? No, it's not a guinea pig. This is Timmy. Timmy is a redfoot tortoise. They come from South America. He's not a turtle, he's a tortoise. The plastrum, the carapace, the beak. He just poked his head and said, "Dad, don't poke me in the head." I'm sorry. When I pet him, of course, he feels this. But that gives you an idea. Why does he have this hard shell? I mean, I could squeeze it hard if I wanted, but he feels it, so I don't want to. That is for protection. They pull their heads in like this and put their feet in front, and that's how they protect themselves. And then something here tries to bite them. They bite this hard shell, very hard to bite through. So that is how the turtle or tortoise protects themselves. He's a very neat animal. You can keep these as pets. Redfoot tortoises, Texas tortoises, you cannot keep as pets. Those are wild animals that have to stay in the wild. But these guys come from South America and make very good pets. A little jumpy sometimes. Okay, let's say bye, Timmy. Now, I mentioned the snake skeleton again. I'm going to mention it one more time. Take a look at those little fangs there on this copperhead. Get an idea of what they look like here. Let's see what they look like from a larger snake, like a big rattlesnake. This came from a 5 foot, 4.5, 5 foot rattlesnake. And these are the fangs of a western diamondback rattlesnake. They can be found on Galveston Island. That's where these fangs came from. And this is an example of large fangs. These move, so they move like fingers or movable teeth inside the snake's head, and that's how they pull their food in. But this is an example of their fangs. So we've had a good opportunity to see some different animals and talk about some different things, but mostly the scales and the skin of a snake, turtle, lizard is all for protection, camouflage, and moreover to help their body keep the fluids inside to actually keep them healthy. So when a snake has torn skin, sometimes it has to be sewn up like stitches, just like you and I could get stitches. So the skin and scales of a snake are super important. They also help a herpetologist, that's somebody who studies reptiles and amphibians. The herpetologist can find a shed of a skin, count the scales, and look at the size of the scales and see if they're keeled or if they're smooth and determine the species. So remember, when you see a snake outside, it's not a pet, it's a wild animal. You always want to leave it alone. Take 3 giant steps backwards and leave it alone. Maybe take a picture, but leave it alone, don't touch it. So remember, drink lots of fluids in all this heat. Heat indexes have been over 100 for days now. And remember, Texas Snakes and More is a fun entertainer, fun education, and where you can learn about reptiles.